Well, you've worked with a ton of really good headliners.
Yeah, it's been great.
Who's been your favorite so far?
To work with?
Yeah.
Oh, I have two favorites. Well, my very favorite weekend was I got to feature an MC. It was both for Damon Wayans Sr. Mm-hmm. Because when I was younger, I would watch him on In Living Color, and I think he's one of the funniest people ever. That whole family is really funny.
Yeah. And
so a couple years ago, I got to feature the first two nights, and it was me and Adam Lucky. We switched, and then I emceed. But I hadn't met him yet either. I was on stage, and I had a really good. I love Spokane Comedy Club.
Oh yeah.
I love it there.
It's so much fun.
It's great, right? So I did a great set, and he didn't get there. He wasn't there yet. But he got there when I was up there, and he was watching my set, I guess. And so when I came off the stage and he was walking up when they invited him up, he's like, "You're very funny," and he shook my hand, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And it just made me so happy. And the whole weekend, it was just great. He was really sweet. He took us out to lunch. Mm-hmm. We were out to lunch. I mean, I was
crazy,
I'm out to lunch with David fucking Wayans, right? And he shared his dessert with us. I was like, I might have his DNA in this bite of cake, and then and he was giving us feedback, and at the end of the weekend he's like, I don't have much feedback for you. I love you. You're very funny. You're likable. You get the women on board. They'll bring their men on board. I don't know. That's what he told me, and so that was just great. Hearing nice things about you is always great, but
for sure. But when it's somebody like that,
too. And he's so fucking funny, and when he gets on stage, he's like. He is a character, kind of like he's himself, but even when he walks in, like he would come in and he would just go straight to the green room, but he looked like he had put his hoodie up and he kind of looked like he was doing one of his characters.
Yeah. And
then later after the show, he'd be like his normal quiet self, and
it's so weird.
But it was cool. It was cool. Yeah. That was a cool weekend. And another weekend that was really great. This was when I wasn't very good yet. I was just new MC. But I got lucky because there wasn't a lot of women back then when I started MCing. And so, Anthony Jeselnik, I got to MC for him.
Oh, wow.
At Spokane. I was very new, and he wanted a woman, and they were like, "Would you feel okay with him?" I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Yeah. So I drove to Spokane, and I MC for him, and I was so starstruck because I loved him.
Yeah.
And he was trying to calm me down and make me feel comfortable. It was hilarious because the green room there is tiny. Well, the old green room was really small. It was like as big as this couch. And he's like, "It's your green room too. Come on in." And basically when you're in there, you just have to sit next to each other. And I was like, "I'm sorry. I'm just such a big fan." And he was really sweet. And just a killer on this. I mean,
for sure.
He was working out an hour, and it was so funny. It was just great. He took me out to lunch, him and his feature. It was just like all these famous people. It's so cool. They were so LA, you know what I mean? Like they were just talking like they knew stuff was coming out, and it was just like it was really neat.
Yeah. I know Charles Hall just worked with him not too long ago, and he said he was just the nicest.
He's very gracious, and in fact, he's like, did the club? He thought I lived in Spokane. I was like, no, I live in Seattle. He's like, "Oh, well, did they pay for you?" And I'm like, "Oh, of course, yeah." He's like, "Otherwise, I would, he was gonna give me, money." He's really nice guy.
Yeah.
Just
certain headliners are so fucking good about that.
And everybody thinks they're like who they are on stage, but nothing.
No. His is definitely kind of a character too.
Totally. But it was funny. So those two were great. I mean, I've worked with so many, but those are just my most memorable weekends, right? But
I had a couple listener questions, like Casey Judson, who's a local comic. He wanted to know what Jim Norton was like in person.
Jim was I got to open, like it was no MC. It was just me for 20 or 30 minutes and then him at the Parlor.
Okay.
Many years ago. Yeah, he was fine. For the beginning of the weekend, he was very he was uptight, kind of not with me, just in general.
Just neurotic.
He was just like, just kind of, for a while. So I just sort of kept my distance. "Hello, I'm your opener. Okay, hi, and just, and then as the weekend went on, he kind of loosened up. And then the last night, in between shows, it was really fun. We were waiting for the late show, and he was watching. He's big into MMA. I guess he commentates, or is that the word, commentates?
I think
commentator?
So. Yeah, commentator.
Yeah, or some kind of fight, one of those fighting things. I don't like any of the fighting. But he was watching it, and I was just like a little kid. I was like, are they allowed to hit each other in the head? And can they do this? And can they? And he was just like a dad explaining MMA to me, and it was so fun for like a half hour. It was just really, awesome. It was really sweet. It was like a nice, sweet memory.
He always requests women to open for him too. I think.
I guess so. I just know that I got lucky because I had to send a tape and he picked me, or somebody picked me. Yeah. So that made me feel really good.
Yeah, I've heard him talk about saying that he likes having somebody that's different than completely him going different. Out.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
It was a nice weekend. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was tense. And then I just, was like, all right. And then at the end of the weekend, it was like we were best friends.
That's awesome.
It was cool.
Didn't you say that Attell, like when you worked with him, he remembered you?
He did. Dave Attell is the greatest. Like a few years ago, they mentioned that he might be offering guest spots at Tacoma. And I was like, oh my God, I want one. And somebody mentioned me. I can't remember if it was the club owner at the time, not the club owner, like the manager or whatever. And so they were like, yeah, you can get a guest spot. But I was emceeing for Fortune Feimster at the Parlor. And a normal show is 90 minutes, right? And so that was the early show at the Parlor. And then I was going to go to the late show and do a guest spot. She did 90 minutes on her own. I'm not joking. The crowd was like, it's a Sunday night. The next day was a holiday. So she's like, should I keep talking? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, no, fuck. And I'm sitting there because I'm the MC. I can't leave. Yeah. So she went so long. And then, good night, everybody. And then I swear I drove about 95 miles an hour from Bellevue to TCC. And I burst in the green room and he was sitting right there. He's like, don't worry, you're going up. We got you, kid. And I was like, oh, thank God. But then he was here earlier this year or last year. And I was still wearing a mask. And so he walked by me and, I just said hi. And he just was like, whatever, And then after the show was over, because I was trying to get a guest spot, honestly, and I love watching him. That's not
for sure.
But after the show was over, I went outside and I took off my mask and I was like, oh, it was great seeing you. Good night. He's like, oh, hey, I knew you were here. I'm like, yeah, I was here the whole time. He's like, I would have given you a guest spot. I'm like, oh. He's like, come back tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. But I had an early gig, so then I had to leave the early gig and fly there again.
Yeah.
So I was like, ah.
Every time you work with Attell, you just rush in to see you.
Yeah, but he's sweet, and he's really nice to give out guest spots and stuff.
Hey, if you like that video, make sure to hit the subscribe button below and follow our page for new weekly content.